Attackers are only getting more proficient, so how can you proactively adapt your cybersecurity strategy? Core Security by Fortra helps you uncover and prioritize the risks that pose the biggest threat to your organization. Core Impact is a penetration testing tool that safely finds and exploits vulnerabilities using the same techniques as attackers. You can conduct advanced pen tests with ease using certified exploits and automation. Take your engagements further by pairing with our red teaming tools from Cobalt Strike and Outflank. Learn more at www.securityweekly.com/core security. Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. Security Weekly listeners can save $100 on their RSA Conference 2023 full conference pass. RSA Conference will take place April 24th through 27th in San Francisco and on demand. To register using our discount code, please visit securityweekly.com/RSAC2023 and use the code 53UCyber. That's 53, the letter U, Cyber. We hope to see you there. And now for the Enterprise Security Weekly news, and I will be there. I think Sam will be there. I'll be there. We'll have a few other people there. I think we're going to do maybe some live recordings and stuff. So probably more news on that as we get closer to it. You can check out securityweekly.com/ESW309 if you want to check out the news stories we're going to talk about today. As always, we might not get to all of them, but we are certainly going to focus on a few of these before Tyler has to run. And the first one has to be Silicon Valley Bank. I apologize if you're already sick of hearing about it, but I suspect maybe not all of our listeners have heard about it, and there have been some bad takes out there. So, we want to take a stab at, setting things straight.
Adrian, we want to take a stab at adding our own bad take to the fuel.
For that, yeah. I'm right today, though. I'm always
You
right
are right today. That's right. That's today's special day. So what do we want to talk about? I mean, what is the news? Like, do you want to tee this up for me to go off? Because in our pre-show discussion on the topic, you had me all fired up.
Yeah, I heard, I was watching the news. I heard that the reason the bank went under is they had too many maternity rooms in the bank, and pregnant women breastfeeding at work, and just worrying about people's diets, stuff like that.
Yeah, you really are. You are like literally saying, let's see if we can get Tyler spicy take so hot that he gets in himself in verbal trouble. That's what you're trying to do to me. I will respond with a much more subdued version of my answer. There is, I've been following it very closely since it started last Thursday. Wednesday and Thursday is where I started following it last week. And there's just been a very interesting, I would describe it as, and I've been trying to follow it with an open mind. That's the key thing here. I've been trying to sit here and go, when I think about the two different sides of the coin of what happened at SVB and what happened on the bank run in a general sense, I want to listen to the mass populace that I'm hearing blaming the technology world, blaming the venture capitalists of the world, blaming entrepreneurs, blaming startups, blaming innovation. But I feel like that's a half-truth at best, and maybe even a quarter truth when you really break it down. Mm. At the end of the day, for those that don't understand what happened, there are fundamental cracks within the banking system, and I'm going to try to avoid being too overly nerdy here, but fundamental cracks within the banking system that happened because of a zero interest rate policy for the last decade. I don't know exactly how long, but a long time. That caused some mismatches in time duration, mark to market and long-term holding treasuries and securities. Long story too long, the bank, Silicon Valley Bank, was in trouble, period, full stop. It was in trouble. And then the tech people got a hold of it and said, hey, if this is a risk, if we're in a spot where some danger could occur to our funding, we should probably move our funding elsewhere. And a few very notable VCs tweeted it, publicly stated it, causing and this is where everybody does blame technology or the tech world, causing the herd mentality of the tech world to withdraw I believe it was over $46 or $48 billion from the bank within 48 hours, essentially dooming it to death, literally just instantly death spiraling it to zero.
Yeah, 25% of all deposits.
Correct. Like just a massive amount of money was withdrawn simultaneously. So that's the TLDR. Go read it. Don't listen to Twitter. Don't listen to half-baked stories from me or anybody else describing it. Go do your own research into really what caused this. But what really irks me is the rhetoric I'm seeing across the internet that says that the tech bros caused this problem. They turned down one of their own. If the tech world didn't decide to make a run on SVB, everything would have been fine. Well, I think the reality is that is not true. The root cause of the problem was stress is put onto the financial system, and then the tinder, the strike of the match, the flint that got hit was a bank run caused by technology withdrawals, and that contagion has now spread to multiple other banks, including Signature Bank of New York, which was closed down on Sunday. First Republic has been hit very, very hard and is also, I think, achieved or taken in some capital to stay afloat. There's half a dozen banks or more that have this fundamental problem. And so, anyways, long story too long, that really is kind of the pain point and the thing that irks me with this dumpster fire about how people articulate this as over 100 VCs and investors, ripping apart the financial system. And now they're even going so far as to saying investors are voicing solidarity with Silicon Valley Bank to try to bring it back to the table, which is exactly the news article that you have at the top of the list today.
Yeah, and it's my take is bankers didn't bank good. like there's 100%. There's a lot of blame you can lay at the people running Silicon Valley Bank in that there were definitely things they could have done to see this coming. We knew, and we were talking about on this podcast, the fact that we just stopped seeing funding coming in, which meant they stopped seeing deposits coming into their bank. And that started in June of last year, if not earlier. So we've been seeing that happen for a while. We've seen charts like the one I just threw up in our Slack back channel. Just showing the number of the blue is the number of deposits last year, and the red is the number of deposits this year. And this one I happened to pull from Mike Privet's security funded newsletter. I think it's one that he actually produced for the newsletter. But yeah, it shows you the amount of money that was flowing into that bank last year is just night and day from the amount flowing in this year. And they made bad investments that were bad because of what happened with the interest rate, and they had to sell some of them. And I think the cherry on top that lit the fuse, was the CEO publicly saying, "Hey, we screwed up. We're in a little bit of trouble here," and like he started the panic. Yeah, he was the one that
the quote, I don't have it in front of me, but the quote is actually quite funny. It's basically, he says something to the effect of, hey, we screwed up, we didn't hedge our interest rates, we need to go out and pull some more funding in to keep the bank alive. But you know what? We'll be fine as long as nobody panics, which is a guaranteed way to incite a panic.
And all you need is one Peter Thiel to tell all his portfolio companies to pull their money out. And then every other VC firm and portfolio company is going to hear about that. And the 49 other VC firms are going to tell all their portfolio. And it's just a snowball.
It's a traditional bank run. That's exactly what it is. Add to that the fact that, companies were burning down. They were not adding money to their bank accounts. They were burning down these bank accounts quickly, right? As burn was occurring, revenue was not coming in. Deposits went in week 8, I think, of 2023 versus 2022, went from 32 fundings in week 8 year over year down to 17 fundings that same week, right? I mean, it's just off a cliff. So when you have the timing of the securities problem, you have the banks deposits on hand just shrinking rapidly. And at the end of the day, how do banks make their money? Banks make their money by loaning out money that brings in money faster than money goes out, right? It's just kind of a math thing. And if you're not bringing in enough money and people are withdrawing capital, you're just in trouble. Like that's the opposite of how a bank makes money. That's how a bank becomes insolvent. And so fundamentally, there were just root cause problems that, the end of the day was that Spark was the bank run that was triggered by tech people. That's correct. And then that contagion spread to multiple other non-tech banks where people were scared. Hey, is this a mid-market bank problem? And it absolutely is. And so people started pulling out money from those banks as well.
Well, and I think the incredible thing is all these people, like I would probably say more than half of the people at that bank are all in the same Slack groups together. They're already in the same WhatsApp groups and group text together. So I can't think of any other situation where word of that would have spread more quickly than it did in this case.
Yeah, I understand, and I don't want to say it's a zero fault problem for the tech
it's not
community.
their fault. I'm just saying it's just one of the things I've been explaining to other people is like there aren't a whole lot of other scenarios like this. Like it was a weird bank for many reasons.
Yeah, I do think listen, if First Republic or Signature Bank of New York, who were in the same trouble, went and did that same announcement, I think we would have seen a bank run. Now, would it have been so drastic? Would it have been a massive contagion problem that affected banking across the entire United States? I don't know. It's tough to tell for sure, but I think you would have seen people pulling. Would have gotten freaked out. The stock would have tanked, and people would have started pulling their capital out of those banks. Mostly because people don't understand how insurance even works against their capital. But that it's just a lack of education. It's a lack of understanding, and then a herd mentality.
I forgot to ask for a dumpster fire graphic for this one.
I think that's implied. I think that graphic is implied. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So we can let's there it is. There it is.
Yes.
Enjoy that.
That was the dumpster fire of the week for sure.
Feel the warmth from the flames of the dumpster fire for a few moments before jumping over to GPT-4.
I don't want to do that topic anymore.
GPT-4. We're moving on.
Now that's a cool topic.
Have you played with it yet? Have you looked into it? Are you aware of all the new features and stuff?
I've read a lot about it. I have not gotten in and tried prompting it directly. I was prompting the original. Well, I guess maybe I did actually. I don't know. I don't know if they cut just the regular Chat GPT interface over to 4.0 or not. But I'll tell you what, man, I've been doing a bunch of writing this week on a bunch of things, and this just solves the blank page problem so well. Like I just give it a couple bullets, say, give me something a lump of clay to mold in my writing here, and it just jumpstarts what you do so fast and so easily. I think it's absolutely amazing, and that's just 1/100th of what's really going to come from ChatGPT-4. ChatGPT-4, and I don't have the exact stats, but I know the within a couple percentage points, is 93rd percentile now in the SAT written, and 90th percentile in the SAT math, I think, and is in the 90th percentile against the bar exam. That's amazing. It is as smart as the smartest humans. I believe it scored 1460 on the SAT most recently.
Yeah, there's a whole list of tests that they've run at it, and it's passing most of them, and a lot of them it's passing at a pretty high rate, which is pretty impressive.
It used to be until within the last 6 months, we always just said, hey, did it pass the Turing test? And for those that don't know, the Turing test is, can you try to communicate with it and be fooled that it is a human or not? And up until recently, the answer was no, it doesn't pass the Turing test. It fails. I can always tell it's a computer. I can ask it a question. I go, oh, that's a computer. It's dumb. This not only passes the Turing test in the last 6 months, it has become so smart. It's one of the smartest beings on the planet. And that happened within 6 months. Can you imagine what that exponential growth rate is going to look like in consciousness, in context? And the key word, I think, that goes with generative AI in general, and ChatGPT, is understanding. It's not just spewing facts. It's actually taking multiple facts, multiple ideas, multiple concepts, and chaining them together into understanding of a concept. And that's what is amazing.
And it's going into products, and it's new products are being built around it, and all that's going to go into a series of articles that me and Tyler are going to write, debating on whether or not AI is going to be the big new platform. So I'm looking forward to finishing up those essays and getting those out, and seeing yours, Tyler. One thing that you left out that's interesting is it will take images as input now. So the example they actually used in the press release is they showed it an image of ingredients, just food ingredients, and said, "What can I make with this?" And it started listing out. You can bake a cake, you can make a frittata, you can make an omelet. It was like milk, eggs, flour, and and something else, and butter.
Well, if you think about the impact of what that really means fundamentally, now you're talking about understanding and context to vision, right? So if we can connect these artificial intelligence systems now with vision, be it video or still vision, they can look at a scenario and go, hey, that dog doesn't have its collar on, it's going to run through the invisible fence. Like it can be that level of intelligent very, very quickly at the exponential growth rate that we're seeing, especially now that it can take in visual files and make contextual understanding around it. Audio files come next. If they don't do it already, they might. I don't remember. But this is the start of a sentient being.
Oh boy, here we go. Ready or not. All right, and it is time for you, Tyler. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you maybe next week.
Let's shoot for it. Tentatively pencil me in. Thank you, guys. You guys have a great afternoon.
All right, see you, Tyler. Thank you. All right, Katie. Anything on the news list here draw your eye? Any interesting stuff here we should go to next?
Yeah, we can run through a couple of these funding ones. The one that I found most interesting was the Samsung Next invest in Mitiga. I don't know quite how to say it. I thought this had been like 6 months ago. I know that the press release just came out, but no positive or negative comments on the company. I don't know them well enough, but interesting that they would wait so long to publicly announce a new round of funding. Especially amidst what's going on in the tech world right now, sitting on some good news. I don't know if.
I'm looking at Crunchbase, and that's really weird, isn't it? It's all Series A, July 2nd, 2021, December 21, 2021, and now March 14th, 2023. They're calling them all Series A?
Yeah, it's very strange to me. And, I don't know if this is just a reflection of what's going to start happening in the market. People are going to start playing with their numbers a little bit. But what does that do externally, from an external perception? What does it do from an investor and a potential customer point of view? How does that potentially shift how people consume their information about companies and how the companies run? It's just strange to me. I would think, I know there have to be some delays sometimes for legal reasons, or maybe a company wants to launch a product along with an investment, or wait until they raise or until they hire people and have sort of a bigger announcement. But funding's pretty big, and especially right now, as we were talking about a little bit earlier, and we've talked about almost every week, funding's down. So getting funding, whether it was July or whether it was last week, should be seen as a good thing. So sitting on it makes me a little curious as to what's going on here.
I have a theory, and I think it's a decent theory, and I've brought it up before, that companies don't want to admit they're taking a down round, and they will do different things to avoid that. They'll announce it without a letter, so that you don't know where it fits into the series of financing. So this looks like it should have been a B, but maybe they're trying to Yeah, they're trying to pitch it as an extension of a Series A that started over 2 years ago, or almost 2 years ago. And
one of the funding announcements that I saw on this, I think it was yesterday, was very confusing. It was written, the title was written such that it made it look like a new $45 million investment was made.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was just a really poor message faux pas or if that was intentional.
No, I think it's intentional, and the reason is in the press release they don't mention the size of the money that was just raised, and that cannot be an accident. The fact that they only mention the total and not that the amount that they just raised now, nearly 2 years after the 25 million is 13 million, which would be a down round. It's spin. I think it's just PR spin.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, a down round, you raise some money where others are not raising anything. Like it's not a negative thing, I don't think. I just prefer they be.
I'm on the same page with you.
More honest about
I
it.
understand the I was able to raise X amount before and now I'm not able to match that. But that isn't just contingent upon your company. There's so much else going on in the world that it doesn't, somebody still believes in your company to give it money. There are a lot of companies that aren't getting funding right now. So I don't quite understand it.
Yeah.
I thought the K-shaped recovery article was very interesting. I know we're hopping around here a little bit. That's a little farther down.
It's fine.
But I thought that was a really interesting article, just looking at it. It made a whole lot of sense to me. It's not super directional by any means. I love the graphic where it says some parts of the economy recovering, some parts, sinking. Yeah, well, of course, that's going to happen. But, in this, it talks a little bit about the types of companies who might be likely to recover more quickly. It talks a little bit about, some of the things companies can do to safeguard themselves, and then it posits on what's going to happen with tech spending. Price hikes. The falling out of small and medium businesses at the bottom. Some of those will be wiped away. And looking at some of these smaller startups and what could happen. And I think some of that is tied to the SVB type bank issues I don't think this is going to be the end of it. I think deregulation helped this. I think a little bit of greed helped this. I think it was just a number of things. You can't pin it on this person, this company, this sector, this law caused SVB and others. I think it's a systemic problem, and I do think we're going to see some of the smaller security startups that looked really, really promising just fall out the bottom.
Yeah, the toughest thing I think for security, I think security spending in general is either flat or even still going up on the enterprise side, but it's just a natural necessity in security to create new categories. And if you don't already have budget allocated for that category, it's going to be a hard sell. And especially if it's in addition to and it's not replacing anything. So that's always been a tough thing for security, to break into, not only break into a market, they've got to do what every other startup has to do. They have to create a new category. They have to explain what acronyms and buzzwords mean, before they can sell their product. They've got to, convince buyers that it's worth it to buy their product in addition to all the other stuff. We saw that for a while with Next Gen AV. I think the only reason next-gen AV companies like Cylance and CrowdStrike and SentinelOne were so successful there is because the problem was actively painful. Like people were just getting creamed by malware left and right. It was very disruptive for the businesses. So they were willing to pay for traditional endpoint protection and next-gen AV until next-gen AV had time to build all those other pieces they needed to replace the incumbents like Symantec and McAfee and all them.
Yeah, and I think in security we've been saying, we're sort of insulated from this because maybe the economy is getting tighter, but cybersecurity is becoming more mainstream and it's becoming more of a business risk, not just a security risk. And people are really understanding that a cyber incident can impact the entire company from production to sales to so many things. But I think this time we're going to see a little bit of a shoring up of the companies in the space. I know it's already happening that enterprises are having to justify their spend a lot more and do a lot more accounting for what tools they have and what tools are unnecessary, because a few years back there was a little bit of a boon on buying. And I did see yesterday a survey of executives. It was one of the analyst firms, and it was the executive level saying, yeah, security budgets are going up, but who do you think is answering those surveys? It's not the smaller companies.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see a lot of problem with both enterprise or end users, where the smaller companies can't justify. And I think for the enterprises, even though their budgets might be going up, they're going to have to justify it a lot more. They're going to have to get rid of duplicates. They're going to have to get rid of shelfware. They're going to have to be more accurate. Even if they do have extra budget, I think they're going to be asked to justify it a lot more. And it's always been that way, but I think it's going to get worse.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a reason that the only companies that we see that have ever been, put out of business by a breach are small companies. They don't have the insurance, they don't have the insulation, the momentum, the customer base, the cash reserves to survive those kinds of incidents. And now companies are going to have to both survive those incidents and just the general impact of the market downturn at the same time. So yeah, it's going to be the larger companies, and we're going to see part of the industry saying, wiping the sweat off their brow and saying, "Oh, thank God, things are back to normal," while other people are like, "What are you talking about? Like, I'm not seeing that recovery at all." So that's the K refers to, for folks not looking at the article, the shape of the recovery, where part of the economy goes up and part of it either stays the same or goes down, drawing a K shape.
I just hope this doesn't stifle innovation. It doesn't scare people off, because like you said, we do need innovation. This isn't an industry where we can just sort of sit on our laurels. So I hope that's not a deterrent for some of the would-be innovators who think that they have a good idea. I mean, we don't need fake ideas, but we do need a lot of good ideas.
I don't think
sometimes you can guarantee a lot of people coming in and trying their hand at a bunch of different things.
I don't think we're in huge danger of that. I mean, there's at least a dozen VC funds entirely focused on cybersecurity at the least. So I mean, money will continue to flow into it. We'll continue to see startups pop up, and the startups that grow up in this, resource and capital constrained environment are going to be stronger companies just out of necessity. So, we could see, the next CrowdStrike, the next Palo Alto Networks come out of this.
That's true. If there isn't money free flowing, you've got to be really good at what you're doing.
Yep. Any of the other funding look interesting to you there? So one I want to mention in here was Range Force. So, talking earlier with Casey Smith about the importance of knowing that your stuff works. That's kind of the DNA of this company. The center of this company is to help train your employees, configure your equipment, make sure that your security tooling actually works, that you can demonstrate competence with it, how to use it. So that's reminds me a little bit of Recon InfoSec, who's also kind of in that same space where they're focused on making sure security teams can execute, can use their tools, can detect attacks, know what to do when they detect the attack, contain and eradicate and recover and all that, all those fun IR steps that you don't want to be learning how to do during an actual incident. All right, and that was a $20 million Series B, Series A. I want to say it's a Series B. Yeah, that's kind of the new Series B. Like that was the new Series A, and it's gone down. It shrunk a little bit. It's not a huge amount, but it shrunk a little bit.
Going back 5 or 6 years, it's about in line.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's see. The Rapid7 acquisition of Minerva Labs is interesting because Minerva Labs has been around. I was just talking about this, the next gen AV. So they were kind of born out of that next gen AV age where we actually saw a lot of companies that didn't intend to build a replacement for traditional endpoint protection. They were intended to be used as an add-on. And Minerva was one of those where they took advantage of the fact that a lot of malware actively avoids running on analyst systems. So if they think they're in a virtual machine, if they think they're being executed to study the malware, to reverse engineer the malware, there's a number of telltale signs that they're looking for that a malware analyst is trying to figure out how the malware works that will cause the malware to just go dormant and refuse to execute. And so basically they took advantage of that, and you could install, you could buy Minerva Labs and install it. And they had this great marketing campaign where they had these sleepy monsters where they were putting these cartoon monsters to sleep. That was an adorable marketing campaign. But they've been around for a while and just now got acquired by Rapid7. So I don't, that market mostly finished exiting, 2017 and consolidating 2017, 2018. So it's a pretty late exit, for a company that was around during kind of the heyday of next gen AV and that whole big push.
Well, they've effectively pivoted. Which is good because, a lot of those AV companies are either no longer around or viable, but Minerva managed to hang on for a while and effectively pivoted to an anti-ransomware platform, which is really just AV in a new fancy outfit, right? But, good for them.
So are they doing the same thing technically? Did they just pivot on the messaging, or did they pivot on the technology also?
I don't
prevents
know
the execution of malware.
Them, but
no,
it's been, this message has been around for a little bit. The ransomware message has been around. I don't think I've ever seen their product firsthand. No. But my guess is that it's pretty similar. Obviously, it's evolved over the years since the beginning. But in this press release, it talks about Rapid7 improving their MDR and, obviously ransomware is not going anywhere. So.
Right. But that's actually the approaches to ransomware I don't like are the ones that focus on the thing that's the easiest for the attackers to change, which is the lever that they use to make you pay. The original one was encrypting files. And already, 3-4 years ago, they started shifting that and copying, exfiltrating files and threatening to release them publicly, trying to get you to pay that way. And even more recently, we've seen them just wrecking stuff, just bricking machines and things like that. And even the insurance providers, are advertising bricking insurance. If in the case that they just ruin systems and you have to replace entire systems. So the fact that they're preventing the malware from running is a pretty resilient approach, because whatever the payload is, that's you still need a piece of software to do the damage in a lot of these scenarios. So that's much more resilient than something that claims to be ransomware prevention just because they ensure your backups are viable or something like that.
Right. I mean, it only makes sense. Any company that's really cyber aware with encrypting files is going to be able to get around that. So, moving it to the next level, the criminals will always be one step ahead. So,
yeah. All right. Let's see what else we've got here. The AI content detector I thought was really interesting. Number 9 here, you can basically just paste text into it and say, check for AI content, and it'll give you a probability of whether that text was created by AI or not, which I got really excited about until I noticed what they're actually charging for how they're going to monetize this product is in ruining their own ability to detect whether or not it's AI content. So they'll actually improve that content so that it can no longer be detected as AI content.
This just, the whole thing just makes me nervous. As Tyler was talking, I'm sitting there thinking, oh God, what am I going to do with my life now? If people don't need me to write, I don't know what I'm going to do. I have to work for 20 more years.
Yeah, it just put me in a whole roller coaster because, at first I was like, teachers now have a way to spot plagiarism, and people cheating and stuff like that. And then I studied the page a little bit closer, and 10 seconds later, I'm like, no, no.
For $49.99, you can. No, what was the charge? I didn't look.
They're offering. I don't think they're even charging yet. It's early access, so you have to go on an invite list. But it seems pretty clear that that's what they're going to charge for, is the anti-solution to the solution that they're presenting.
The anti-solution to the solution. Okay, at least there's an anti-solution. I'm very worried about the solution itself because, I expected to have 20 more years in this industry. I don't know what I'm going to do now.
No, the anti-solution is the bad part. We're right back to where we started.
Right.
Not being able to detect
like I said,
if it's
I thought
AI
I was going to have 20 more years. I don't know what I'm going to do now.
You need to learn how to write prompts. I think if anything clear comes out of this, there will be some skill involved in knowing how to get the best results out of these different AI interfaces and AI engines. Like, you have to understand what they're good at, what they're bad at, what kind of keywords signal different things. With the image stuff, if you look at prompt base, you get an idea of how complicated this can get. So I think the writer of the future that's going to make the most money, especially freelancers, are the ones that can adopt this and learn how to use it the best earlier on. It's just a new tool. Like you can be angry at it, or you can embrace it and learn to use it. And one group of people will be happier and make more money than the other group, I think.
Right. I was asked to beta test a friend that I've known for a while, runs an AI company, and he sent over a private beta for a ChatGPT-like tool that they're building in conjunction with their main product. And it was really interesting going through it and testing it out, because I'm sure it has bugs on the back end, and that's why this was a beta test for a very small and private group of people. But it was amazing what it could do. It asked me a few questions. I had to pick a scenario, And then it would walk me through that scenario, and I could either use the prompts that it gave me or write my own. And I was supposed to test out which results were better. The first time, for every exercise, I guess I'll call it an exercise, the result, the initial paragraph or two, whatever it was that came out of it, was not very good. But then when I went back and gave it some correction, the second draft was always really good. And good enough that if I had been reading it quickly and I didn't know it was written by AI, I would know it was written by AI. It was not obvious. And so this is not sort of the kludgy, awkward, AI-driven text that we've been dealing with for the last few years. So that was really eye-opening to me too, to actually test something that's being built right now.
Yeah. I've been using it within Notion quite a bit. That's been my number one use case. I've been using ChatGPT directly a little bit also. It helped on weekly team trivia the other day, because we know every day we're going to get a question that's based on this day in history, right? And so I just asked it to make a list of notable things that happened that day in history, and just read through it, memorized some of the items it came up with, and one of the ones it came up with was the answer to the question that week. So it's now that said, like 6 of the items on there were wrong. Were just completely wrong. The facts, and that's supposed to be one of the big improvements with ChatGPT-4 is its ability to understand to get facts correct. Because there's a number of different reasons that the AI gets facts wrong. Like in some cases, you could tell, like it was pulling out a date that aligned with something that you asked it, but it's not like if you asked it for the first time something happened, like the very first thing that happened, like it's telling you the 4th time it happened or something like that, because it's maybe dates aren't attached to all the references that it has or something like that. So hopefully that improves.
Oh, I have no doubt.
But it doesn't matter if it gets, depending on your use case, it's okay for it to get 6 out of 10 wrong if you only needed one of them to be right for it to help you, which it did in our case. So I think I'm gonna head to the bottom here, head down to the squirrel stories. The first one, Robert Downey Jr. I think it's been a while since we've had a celebrity face on a cybersecurity company. The last I recall was what's his name? The HP Wolf campaign, the printer security stuff. What's its name?
Printers.
There's this.
Stuff?
Yeah. There's his face. I'm looking at the commercial. Where's his name? Oh, my brain.
I don't know.
Christian Slater.
Oh, I remember that.
Yep. And it's still going on, I think. I think he's still like a spokesperson for them and still doing ads and stuff like that for them. They've got whole websites just devoted to the HP Wolf stuff. Robert Downey Jr. is the newest one. And I think it's a good combination because, there are a lot of stories out there about how difficult it is to be a celebrity because people are always looking for dirt on you. And, to the point where some of them, there's just so much negative stuff online, they can't have social media accounts. And, beyond that, like they can't avoid having a digital life altogether. So now we've got this whole new category of products that are, personal cybersecurity, so there's a number of things that these products keep an eye on, from your credit score to scanning the dark web, looking for any leaks of PII and anything that could personally be harmful to you. And this company is Aura, is the name of the company. So kind of a competitor to Black Cloak, though I think aiming at like general population, whereas Black Cloak is kind of aimed at executives at they call it digital executive protection.
In an analyst role, we talked to a bunch of these companies, and they very much, the message was for celebrities or high-powered executives, or, in other words, people that have more to lose than you, So a lot of these services were aimed at, if you're a high net worth type of individual, you should have these types of services. And some companies, some of the bigger companies even offer these, sort of digital risk platforms to executives. That's one of the benefits that they have. We heard that over and over again when I was doing some digging into this area. And, I get it. Certain types of people are going to be targeted more, but, his campaign, and I don't know who the PR person is who wrote it for him, but online safety is no joke. It's a little catchphrase, but I think it's great that it's going mainstream. I don't know if Iron Man needs to be the one talking about it, but hey, if it helps, it helps.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the worst marketing strategy, right? It's if it's backed up by a solid product, that could be a really good pairing. Especially if he's in it for the long haul, not just like a 6-month deal for him to come in and boost their name and go off and do something else. I mean, it's a brand advocate that makes sense. It's a combination that makes sense. And I've tried out some of these products, and some of them have some issues with false positives and stuff like that, but they do seem to be getting better. And I'd be willing to pay, $10 a month, $15 a month or something like that, just to keep tabs on this kind of stuff. Because a lot of it's not hard to track. Like your credit score isn't hard to track. It's just stuff that people don't have time to go manually pull their credit report, every 6 months or something like that. So if you can have an app or a service do it for you, I would absolutely pay for the convenience of not having to spend a couple hours every 3 months or so and I'm not going to remember to either. So no. Yeah, it's a good opportunity.
No, the only time I remember to do that is my fiance and I bought a truck, and I was like, oh shit, I should check my credit score before I go try to negotiate with these jokers at the car dealerships. Right. That kind of thing.
You want to have that information before they do, so they can't use it against you. Yeah.
Right. Yep. But the last time I did that was when I bought my car a year ago.
Yep. All right. And the final squirrel story here is UT Southwestern. What is that? University of Texas?
Yeah.
Yeah. Scientists at University of Texas Southwestern discover agent that reverses effects of intoxication. So you can be very serious from this point. You can joke about, how people might casually use something like this in the future, but it probably saves some lives.
Well, sure, because the long-term effects of alcoholism are devastating. Really devastating. And even years after you stop drinking, these things, it can affect somebody physically, mentally, emotionally, so.
I don't think that's what this is, though. I think this is like for short-term use, like literally like if you need to sober up quick, if you're in danger of getting alcohol poisoning.
That helps with the short-term effects, that also, I would think, by proxy helps with the long-term effects. If it can,
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, if it can reverse the effects of intoxication now, I haven't dug into this, obviously done a ton of research, but if, let's say I go out and get completely smashed tonight and I do nothing about it, every time you do that, that adds up a little bit in your body.
Yeah.
And if this drug can reverse that and take away at least some of those times, the long-term effects of this, it's devastating. The disease is devastating. It kills people, obviously. So could this be, a step towards helping, I would hate to think that somebody would use this in lieu of helping themselves.
Right.
If they do have a real problem with alcohol, I would hate to think that this is that kill switch for them. But maybe in extreme cases, it can help their quality of life long term.
Looking at the article here, they do mention that they did discover that it discouraged alcohol drinking in sober mice and encouraged water drinking to prevent dehydration in intoxicated mice. So there might be something. It sounds like it can encourage or be like a I don't know, like some of the smoking cessation solutions that are out there. Maybe something similar to that. And other researchers discovered that this hormone appears to protect against alcohol-related liver injury. So it seems like an all-around, it's got a bunch of different potential uses here. Of course, I haven't found the part where they talk about side effects or anything like that, but obviously still early. They're testing it in mice and stuff like that. But yeah,
sure. And I'm sure, like with every medical intervention, there are some side effects, and there are going to be people who argue on both sides of it. But if this can prevent some negative consequences, both short and long term, go science.
And just to end this on a little bit of a higher note here, there is a great MythBusters episode. And I'll drop it in the Discord here, where they test different myths about trying to sober up more quickly. Everything from drinking black coffee to vigorous exercise, and Jamie even there's slapping somebody across the face. So Jamie slaps Adam across the face in an attempt to sober him up more quickly. So that's,
my guess is that didn't work.
I don't remember. It's been literally a decade plus since I watched that, so I'll have to rewatch them. But some of them, I think some of them worked and some of them didn't, if I recall correctly.
Well, I have a squirrel story that's not on the list.
Okay.
It's both. It can either be funny or not, depending on your point of view of squirrels. But for the past several months, I've had 2 squirrels living in my garage. It is a detached garage. It is an older garage. That was probably built early 1900s, at least. So, not the most tightly built garage. And there were 2 squirrels living in there making an absolute mess. One day I came home, got out of my car, and there was one squirrel sitting there staring at me, and I tried to yell at him, and he wouldn't leave because apparently he decided that he gets to live here rent-free. Well, I rent out a part of my garage to a landscaper who lives nearby, and I had to run an errand today. I came home, and he was there, and one of his guys said, "Hey, there's a dead squirrel in your garage." So those squatters were living rent-free in my garage, and I guess something got to them because there was a dead squirrel in my garage today. So kind of gross, but the good news is I didn't have to deal with it. Somebody else did. And also, no, I don't have squatters.
I think that's the first literal squirrel story that we've had.
Well, I thought we should do something better after the alcohol story. So it was a literal squirrel story, yeah.
Yeah. All right. And with that, thanks so much, Katie, for joining me today. And big thanks to everybody watching or listening to this week's episode of Enterprise Security Weekly. We will be back next week.